There's still a lot of new gameplay, mysteries, and encounters we couldn't show today, but they're all jam-packed into this unfamiliar Hyrule. They're all jam-packed into this unfamiliar Hyrule. They're all jam-packed into this unfamiliar Hyrule. They're all jam-packed into this unfamiliar Hyrule.
Is it really, though? Because this is kinda a lie. It has been over 7 months since Tears of the Kingdom blessed our homes with its presence. After what felt like an eternity of waiting patiently for Breath of the Wild sequel to come out, it turned out to be what a lot of us feared it would be. It's just Breath of the Wild with some new abilities, a handful of sky islands, the depths, and new ways of traversing an already familiar Hyrule. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that statement either, because that's what it is. Is that a bad thing? Well, yes and no, but mostly yes. Before you come breaking down my door with pitchforks and torches, just know it is perfectly fine to disagree with me. Not everyone will look at a piece of art the same way, because it all depends on one's perspective. If there's one thing we all need to learn, it is how to agree to disagree and respect others' opinions. Now, before I divulge into my biggest issue with Tears of the Kingdom, let me tell you what I did like. The depths felt really fun to explore for the first few hours. Revisiting settlements felt like coming home after a long trip overseas, and getting to talk with all your friends and family again. Seeing all my old pals from Breath of the Wild and finding out what they have been getting up to was really enjoyable. Exploring caves was interesting, and I had a lot of fun spelunking, even if they felt similar to one another. The most fun I had was making random contraptions with Ultra Hand. In my opinion, the selling point of this game. The crafting system with the fusion ability was a great idea, and I love how versatile it is. I like the shrine puzzles a lot more in Tears than Breath, but that is mainly attributed to Ultra Hand. Recall and Ascend were nice touches as well that brings forth another layer of traversal. And that is pretty much it. I tried my hardest to find more, but that was all I could manage on my list. Now, I'm sure you have all heard by now how terrible the story is and its lack of meaningful impact. Pretty much a broth soup. But that is not what I'm here to talk about. I don't think this gets touched on enough, and that is Hyrule itself. Tears of the Kingdom's fatal flaw is reusing Breath of the Wild's Hyrule. Why make this a sequel if you don't include any significant connections to the first game? Now, I said I wasn't going to talk about the story, but I need to say this. Tears of the Kingdom's story could have been told in any new Hyrule, and it would have changed nothing. In fact, it probably would have been better. The lack of any NPC remembering the events of the calamity is ridiculous. And the only explanation for Shikatek disappearing comes from an interview and is never mentioned in the game. Why even bother? It feels lazy and thoughtless. They went through the trouble of reusing Breath of the Wild's Hyrule all for that. A big old pot of broth soup. Was it worth it? Because exploring Tears of the Kingdom's thick, heavy quotation marks unfamiliar Hyrule felt boring after 20 hours. Sure, the Zelda team went around adding some interesting locations, but the best way I can put it is no amount of new stuff will make this old Hyrule feel new again. The excitement of a new, untouched landscape just wasn't there. Knowing where all the important locations are on the map leaves a really empty feeling. My driving force to explore Tears of the Kingdom's overworld came down to me wanting to see the changes to the village and NPCs. That was it. Once I fulfilled that goal and got majorly disappointed by the lack of connection to Breath of the Wild, I stopped and said, what's the point? The more I explored this Hyrule, the less I wanted to explore. The familiarity to the landscape was extremely off-putting to me. I honestly didn't care what each nook and cranny held like I did in Breath of the Wild. Don't get me wrong, Tears of the Kingdom does have its secrets, but I just felt less enticed to go find them. Because if Nintendo didn't care about making connections to Breath of the Wild, why should I care about exploring a world with a lack of cohesion? Now, it might not sound like it, but I am being extremely nice here, because Hyrule, or I will call it the overworld, was the best part about the exploration. Now, up until this point, I have been avoiding talking about the depths and the sky as much as I could, but I guess here we go. The depths were Tears of the Kingdom's best kept secret. It might have been hinted at, but it was really never shown. The whole idea of the depths was cool, with flipping the map opposite to the overworld with high mountains on the surface becoming deep pits in the depths. Neat. Although, let me level with you about the depths. Sure, they were great to explore in the beginning, like maybe the first 10 hours down there. And then you realize that once you have seen one part of the depths, you have seen it all. The landscape just blurs together. The lack of variety and player interaction just ruins the whole experience. On top of that, one of the things that I enjoyed at first became an annoyance. The darkness. A pitch black landscape with limited options of lighting it up. Like I said, it was fun at first, but after my terrified feelings wore off and I just wanted to go find light routes, I disliked it more and more. And that basically sums up my thoughts on the depths. It became a nuisance to explore. Now the sky. The sky was heavily marketed as a selling point, but it is empty. I can almost bet that 70% of the sky is copy and pasted. The lack of anything super meaningful was a shame. It felt sloppy and thrown together. Sure, there were a few good aspects like the test of courage for the glide suit, but it is really hard to get over just how desolate the sky is. What is the point of exploring the sky? Because I had a hard time figuring that out myself. The only thing that I could find meaningful was the Zonai parts dispensers. They're the only reason to go back. The sky was the biggest anticlimactic part about Tears of the Kingdom. Something that could have been one of the best aspects is downright the worst. Now, I could spend hours ranting about how disappointed I am with Tears of the Kingdom. You might think that I'm being too harsh and maybe unappreciating. And maybe you are right. Maybe I'm just too spoiled. But I think to a certain extent that my criticisms are justified. Let me put it like this. I waited 6 years for Tears of the Kingdom to come out. And for it to be marketed as a Breath of the Wild sequel felt like a punch to the gut. The lack of connection and just genuine care about the story and characters was disappointing. And isn't the whole purpose of reusing a map and characters from a previous title is to make these connections? This feels less like a sequel and more of a reimagine of Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom is what they wanted Breath of the Wild to be, and it is a shame they just didn't move on and do something new. Reusing Breath of the Wild's map was pointless, and it also hurt this game's exploration when 90% of all the interesting side quests and things to do are located in the overworld. I do like Tears of the Kingdom, but I don't love Tears of the Kingdom. The gameplay and revisiting settlements was a ton of fun, but that feels like the only takeaway. It is a shame because I do think Tears of the Kingdom is a better game than Breath of the Wild. But it's only better to those who have never played Breath of the Wild. With the Game Awards coming up here in just 2 weeks, I don't think Tears of the Kingdom should win. It didn't do what it was marketed as. It left a lot of fans with a nasty taste in their mouth. Sorry for ranting so long. You know, if you made it this far, comment Ganon's toes. It will be funny, trust me, just do it. I just needed to get this off my chest because it has been boiling up inside of me for months now. I just hope that the Zelda team doesn't retread the same mistakes they did with Tears of the Kingdom. Honestly, I could care less about a gigantic world to explore again. I think Tears of the Kingdom is too big for its own good. Just all I ask for is a good story and gameplay. There should be no reason we can't have both. I know I probably missed a lot of things I wanted to cover in this video, but for now, I will leave it at that. Actually, there's one more thing I want to add to this. I took a community poll just to see where everyone's stance was on Tears of the Kingdom's exploration, and it looks like, for the most part, everyone had the same sentiment. With the sky being the front runner for the worst aspect of Tears of the Kingdom's exploration at 66%, followed that by the depths at 24%, and finally the overworld at 10%. I just found it really interesting that everybody kind of felt the same way that I did regarding Tears of the Kingdom. Anyway, that's all I wanted to add to that. As always, I'm TJ, and I'll be seeing you.